Sally, could you not destroy my bag, please? Thank you, ma'am. Sally's here. Say hi.
No.
Let's see how long you stick around for. Well, that was like 2 seconds. Okay, are you gonna stay there? Maybe? I'm at a window, so there's like, oh, okay, no, she's gone. Apologies if the lighting and setup is a bit weird, but I'm at my mom's place right now in her office. I am dog sitting while my mom is out partying on music festivals and doing other stuff that young people do, I guess. Charlie's here too, in her little travel carrier down here, just eating, chilling, enjoying life. While dog sitting though, I thought I could do my video talking about my trip to the US because I've been putting it on for some time, obviously, because then I got into vet school and then I was stressed about if I was gonna come into vet school and all sorts of different things. But finally, I'm here to talk about it, and what I'm gonna do is talk about all the vet relevant stuff because I was away for a whole month. So I could talk a lot about all the things that I did, but I thought to keep it just vet relevant because that was sort of the purpose of the trip. And then all of the other like things that could be relevant to other videos are just gonna come up in those videos, or I could maybe make another one talking about my trip, something else. I'm gonna talk about all the vet relevant stuff that I did. So let's just start at the beginning because anything else wouldn't make sense really. So right before attending vet school, I actually started my channel where I did some vet related stuff and my Pinus guide and some other videos. But this woman saw my videos and she reached out to me. I was a bit creeped out because I don't know where she got my info, but she reached out via a group that we had and then asked for some advice on her white cat while also mentioning that she was a veterinarian in the US. The funny thing was though that her husband was actually Danish, which was why she also thought it would be fun to reach out to me and just talk for a little bit. And so we did for a couple of months, and you know, it was an on and off thing. We didn't talk a lot, but then we would send a message asking how it was going and all that. Fast forward to a year then where I drop out and I don't really know what I'm gonna do. I obviously want to work because I need money for rent. So then I did what some might find a bit insane, but I texted this lady because she ended our last conversation with, if you ever need anything, write me. Right? So what I obviously ended up doing was texting her if she had any maybe jobs for me or if I could help her out at her clinic. But truth be told, I did find it a bit less extreme at the time because when we started writing, I did read US as UK. So what I thought was a 1 hour plane ride suddenly turned into 12 hours across the ocean, you know. But you know, when she wrote that she lived in the US, I was kind of like, well, there goes my plans. But then I got thinking, like, why not? Why not just take the trip? So, you know, we got talking more and I asked back and forth and how it would be with housing and what vets she knew and all of these practical things. And then I kid you not, 1 month later, we already have a plan arranged where I can stay at their house and do some chores and child sitting in exchange for a place to sleep and food and even transport to and from a vet clinic where she had gone and did basically an interview for me or introduced me, and they had agreed to let me shadow their work. So 1 month in, we had this plan. The only expense for me would be the plane tickets, which I got actually for a pretty good price because of the early planning. But you might ask yourself why I didn't just work at, you know, my host's place, because she was an equine veterinarian. And while it wasn't, you know, my key interest, I like horses, but I don't want to become a horse vet because horse people are crazy. But the reason I didn't just work for her was because she had just moved states from Ohio to South Carolina. And if you don't know, in the US, you can have a veterinary education, you can have been a vet for a long time, but if you ever move states, you will have to take a license in that state. So she would have to pay to go to a test, take the test, and then get, you know, the green flag for then doing veterinary work in that state. So how they did it was that her partner would do all of the work, so going out to horses and clients and helping them, while she would basically manage the whole thing. So she would do billing and making sure that they had all the things that they needed, papers, all of this. She was happy with this work arrangement, by the way, because she had 2 young kids, so she could just stay home with them. But oh my god, my host was so sweet, teaching me everything she knew about the vet world in general. And honestly, stuff like billing and management should not be underrated when learning about vet clinics, because holy, there's a lot to think about. And on top of her just, talking to me and teaching me a whole lot about the vet world, they lived on this beautiful farm with just so many animals. So there were 2 dogs, Chloe and Mickey, also known as Moose. He was so sweet. Then there were barn cats, there was the barn pig Bastion, budgies, and then horses Manny and Handsome. I'll get into some of the animals later, but this was just to mention again how sweet my host was, because despite not really being into animal medicine for a lot of years, she would still happily teach me everything she knew, and we could even do some work on some of the animals that she had on the farm. So one of their chihuahuas, Chloe, started squinting her eye a lot, so I first learned how to do a damage test to basically locate damage on the sclera, which is the outer layer on the eye. So what we do is we used a colored water-based liquid and then just put a drop on the sclera, which will reveal the damaged spot. The way it works is that the outer layer of the sclera is what we call hydrophobic, meaning that it repels water, which is why when get something in your eye, you can usually just wash it or something like that, because the water is just repelled off of your eye basically. So when the sclera gets damaged, the next layer is what we call hydrophilic, meaning that it likes water. So imagine that you put like a colored water-based liquid in the eye, then it will only bind to the place with damage, because that layer really likes water and will bind to it. And therefore it leaves a colored spot. And I tried to show it here on Chloe, but it's so cool that she just had these things laying around, and then we could do this examination on Chloe on the farm. Just want to say that this doesn't hurt the dog or Chloe in any way. She's absolutely fine. It's just a way to locate the damage, and then we were actually able to just medicate it straight on to where the damage was, and Chloe here healed within a week, where she stopped squinting and she just overall stopped being very irritated by it. So it was really cool seeing firsthand how the healing process was, and from diagnosing to her actually being okay. It was so interesting. Some other vet experiences that my host gave me involved the horses, because again, she was an equine vet, so it was easy for her to do horse work. So what we did was give both of the horses a dental, because if you don't know, horse teeth actually grow their whole lives, and so sometimes they need a trim to avoid giving them sharp edges, because they do trim them down when eating, but they can get these sharp edges that can irritate their mouth and sometimes even damage the mouth. So we did a dental to keep the mouth healthy, which basically looks like her with a hedge trimmer inside the horse's mouth, but I promise again, it doesn't hurt. The horses are semi-seduced. I'm currently editing, and I do not know why I said the horse was seduced. I obviously meant sedated, because a seduced horse would be weird. So it's sedated, not seduced. So they can't really feel anything. I also got to take my very first blood draw on one of the horses, which has been actually a huge milestone of mine, because if you don't know, I have been so afraid of blood and needles and have passed out on basically all of my vaccine appointments. I always got my shot, but not before Journey to the Floor and me waking up and realizing that I still have to get the shot. But yeah, it's been such a huge milestone, and I wanted to mention this because I know a lot of other people are maybe afraid of bloods and needles and therefore don't want to go to vet school. But they are really aware of it at vet school as well. I remember our first day there where we got to see the laboratories and the dissection hall and all of this. They had, sugar drinks prepared for us if we ever fell ill, or they just had so many things prepared and spoke to us about if we ever feel ill, we can just go out or any of that. And that really helped me go through it. The last time that I felt bad was, I think, during a dissection. But then I feel the signs and I just walk out and they're totally fine with that. And now I'm here, having taken my first blood draw on a horse with my very own syringe and all of that. So a reminder, go to vet school, even though you might be afraid of these things. If that's what you really want to do, they're so sweet at helping out, at least on mine. And I feel like I've heard of a lot of vets that feel the same way but work their way through it. So keep it up, I believe in you. But I think that covers like the overall experiences that my host gave me. I'm not gonna lie, we talked a lot, and obviously she taught me a bunch of other things, but that was mostly just talking. And then these were the 2 experiences that I really remember that were really vet related, where she just took me out and wanted to show me these things, which was so cool. But let's move on to the clinic that I then shadowed, because I'm not gonna lie, it was a bit chaotic, and by that I mean it was very chaotic. Safe to say, I would not drive my practice the way that this practice worked, but I will be fair and say that they were in a really bad place where they didn't have a veterinarian that was there full time, so they would have vets that worked maybe 2 places come in and do some surgeries, or they would, you know, have someone in for a short period and then swap them out. So the place was basically run by vet techs. The vet techs were actually really sweet. They were so good at just taking me along and explaining what they did and overall letting me do some stuff. So I ran some of the blood work and I just overall helped out holding dogs, and they were just so sweet people. The biggest problem comes with the boarding. Oh my goodness, the boarding. Some clinics will have boarding as a service where people can come in and basically have the clinic dog sit or cat sit their animals while they maybe move or do some other things. And this clinic would take in way too many pets. So there were maybe 6 or 7 dogs in crates, both where they did the whole thing. So in like the surgery room, there would be dogs in the break room, there would be dogs in the radiation room, which I don't think is safe. But there would just be dogs everywhere. And then there were, 2 or 3 parrots in there, and also on top of that 3 or 4 cats. There were so many pets. I'm not against boarding, by the way. It can totally be done on very good terms, but these animals were in small cages all around the clinic, as I mentioned, and they would bark so loud during the whole day. I would not be able to have a full-time job in that place with all the dogs barking and being in these small cages and having to take them out. All of these like 8 dogs had to come out for potty breaks like 2 or 3 times a day, if not more. It was so much work and so much noise. And you couldn't even take a break from this noise because, again, as mentioned, there were dogs in what they had as a boarding room. There were dogs in the clinic itself. There were dogs in the break room. There were dogs in the office. There were dogs in the x-ray room. They were all over the place. And some of these dogs would react every time you went by and not stop barking until they had barked for like 10 or 15 minutes. And that's just one of the dogs. Then there's the 7 other dogs. I also can't imagine how stressful it must be for the clients, because they come in, it's already stressful for a lot of pets to go to the vet. Then they get separated from their owner, and now they also have to hear these 5 dogs barking at them. It can't be a good environment to work in or for the animals to be in at all. And that also goes for the ones that are boarded. Then we can talk about how the consultations work. I'm of course not sure what the norm is, but here at least it's very normal for, owners to come into the vet clinic, and then there's maybe three in at a time or something like that, depending on the size, of course. But then the vet comes out and gets both the owner and the pet into a consult room where they will do all the examination on the pet while talking to the owner and having the owner there to help out and tell about their situation and animal and whatnot. I personally really like this setup because if I were to take any of my pets to the vet, I really like knowing what the vet is doing and being able to ask questions and really just get a conversation going so that she can also ask the right questions, or if I suddenly remember anything, I can say it right away and help out with my pet. And also, you know, as a veterinarian, I would appreciate this setup because then again, it goes reverse. I can know all these things about a client's animal while also being able to ask the owner some questions if I run into anything. I also feel like this way the vet also just ensures to have that one client in at a time that they can focus on and ask questions about, then finish that case before they move on to the next one so that they don't have 3 cases at a time. Because that's what they would do at this clinic, I kid you not. They were 3 vet techs, so sure, it's possible that they could have, you know, 1 animal each, but if one of them needed help, and this would happen with like nail trimming or just holding a dog or anything like that, one of the others would have to drop their case or put it on pause to help her out, and then I would maybe just get a dog leash in my hand being asked to hold the dog so that they could help out on that second case. And I'm just standing there thinking about the owner that's in the consult room waiting for their pet to be done, but I have to sit here and hold it for 10 minutes before the vet tech can continue on that case. The thing about this that I had the biggest problem with was that the owners would obviously wait in the consult room while the pets would be taken to the back. But that also meant that there could be 3 pets at a time in the back. Imagine 3 dogs that would suddenly just snap at each other. It thankfully didn't happen, but I do remember a specific scenario where they had a dog in that had, you know, very visible lice just crawling around on it, and they put it up on the counter right next to another client's dog. And I'm like, that's not safe. You don't know if that's gonna transfer, you don't know if the dogs will get along or any of that, but they would just mix the dogs in the back. I really won't bash them too hard because they were again super sweet people. There was just this lack of professionalism and boundaries or something that was missing that made it super chaotic, and it's obviously not a good work environment for them to be in with all of these dogs barking, and there could really go something horribly wrong someday. But on the other hand, I didn't feel like it was my place to speak because I obviously look up to these people that are working at a vet office. So at the time, I couldn't really get myself to say anything because I was the one shadowing. I was just a student. So I didn't say anything. I didn't feel like it was my place to speak, but I will take it as a learning experience as to why these structures and rules are important and why I shouldn't be boarding 10 dogs when I have my own vet clinic someday. The vet work itself was of course also super cool to see. You know, I was shadowing consults and seeing what medicine would be prescribed to which diagnosis was super cool, as well as being able to run this blood work and hold dogs and all of that. That was also super learningful, but I think I will take this part with me of why having these things and structures are really necessary in a clinic. You haven't seen a lot of B-roll here because I wasn't allowed to film at the clinic. I did ask a few owners, but they would say no, so I just thought it was best not to film overall. I did, however, break the rule once with a super cute boarded golden retriever that I could not leave alone and would give loads of pet every single day. And she was just the sweetest ever. So my trip overall was really amazing, and having to shadow this vet clinic was just an awesome experience, and I can't thank my host and the clinic enough. One thing I must say that really made my trip not so great was the infrastructure, because damn, infrastructure in the US really sucks. I can't describe how much I missed going for a walk, or walking down to get my groceries, or walking down to the park and go for a walk, just walking, because there were no sidewalks where I was. It wasn't a big city or anything, but it was still a place with a lot of stores and houses and all of that, yet no sidewalks, no bike lanes, nothing. You could only take your car. So I was very reliant on my host to drive me around to all of these different places that I wanted to see, which just really gave me not that much privacy. Of course, I had my own room and it was cool, but after hanging out in my room for like a week, I just want to go for a walk down to the park and not rely on my host or anyone else to drive me there. It just overall took so much freedom away from my everyday life that I was used to, which was weird because I wouldn't think that it would have such a big impact on my trip, but it actually really did. And I suddenly also get why Americans at 16 want cars. Thankfully, as mentioned, my host was sweet enough to drive me around, and that did give some freedom and time away from the house. But you know, it would be weird to ask if she would drive me to the park so that I could go for a walk alone and then drive me back home. So I just missed that during my trip. But overall, super great. I'm gonna end it here, and I would actually love for people that work at a clinic or just go to a really cool clinic tell how they operate, because I'm super interested to see if it was just this clinic that was a bit chaotic or if it's a bit of the norm to have that many boarded animals in the clinics in the US and having the owners separated from the animals when they go and do checks. So I'm interested to hear that, or if it's more like here where owner and animal go in until, you know, the whole session is done and they can go out and go home. Let me know. I have covered a lot of the vet work that I did, so I'm so sorry that I haven't talked about more, but it was a bit of a, you know, day-to-day thing at the clinic. Not much happened, but I still have learned so much. And oh my god, my phone is overheating. So I'm gonna end it here, but I hope you guys enjoyed my little trip, and I will of course tell more about it in future videos. Bye!